Welcome to Be Hero Media. I'm Tom,
And I'm Brian.
and we are here to discuss
Or Fuss.
over what's new
What's trending?
and what is to come
Giggity.
in pop culture.
All right, guys. In the last episode, we talked about Jackass Forever, which we both enjoyed. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed too. Based off what your guys' comments and everything was, you guys did. So we want to continue this conversation a little bit more and talk about what stupid Jackass-like things we have done in our life. I have a long list of things, and
And I have
this should be fun.
things. and for those that are wondering, like, what does Jackass and doing dumb things have to do with being a hero or a B hero or whatever? Shut up. and more importantly, everyone has their life journey. Everyone does silly, dumb things. And those guys were some of my heroes growing up. They've done incredible work, and they actually have done a lot to shape stunt work for the film industry for the better. So they are heroes to a lot of people there, and let's talk about just kind of our own mishaps, shall we call them, in our personal heroes journeys. Growing up for me, I was very big into I loved the idea of skateboarding. I obviously grew up playing the Tony Hawk video games, but I ended up kind of more finding my niche in BMX, and all of my friends were into motocross. So stuff like the skating tricks that they did, with even dating back to like CKY, right? Uh, no, that kind of stuff was up my alley. I cannot tell you how many times I thought I had a great idea. Take a shovel out, build a little jump. We're gonna jump over this. I've been bucked over the handlebars so many times on a nosedive, I lost count. It's honestly impressive that I've never had a concussion. With how many times I've just.
I have had so many concussions, not even funny. Um, for me, I grew up in a wrestling fan, right? So much so I became a wrestler for it, and so I've done a lot of stupid stuff involved in wrestling. Uh, from jumping off of buildings on the stupid things or on the people and stuff like that. But because of my experiences with doing that stuff, I've also overestimated my ability. So many years ago, a dear friend of mine and I met a friend of mine, and then his girlfriend at the time met me over at a friend's house who I was doing roofing work for on his roof. So we were tearing down a roof. It was on a three-story house, and I was trying to impress the girl because we had just met her, and she's female. And in the front yard of said house, my friend who owned the house owned a trampoline. And everyone's coming down the ladder that when we got done because it was all time to finish up. And I'm like, you know what? I've done plenty of things in wrestling. I know how to survive and roll and not hurt myself. And so I'm like, hey, I'll meet you guys down there. I'm gonna take the fast way. And my female friend, or she's my friend now, but at the time it was the girl I was trying to impress. Like, don't do it. You're an idiot. And I should have listened to her. I jumped off the three-story roof onto the trampoline. And because I didn't want to bounce into the road, I was going to tuck and roll and take all that momentum forward to roll onto the trampoline. And it did exactly as I planned. Except for when I landed, I rolled my ankle in that same landing on the jump. And I ended up getting a severe pull in a ligament in my ankle. And I had to walk around with crutches for 6 weeks. And I was sober for that one. Um,
see, even sober people do dumb things. Actually, most of
uh,
the dumb things I've done have been while sober. Uh,
another great sober one I had is most of my friends have grown up around horses. I had horses, did that stuff with my friends as well. And we were over at my friend's pasture dropping off the hay bales, and we had these 1 ton bale of hay. They're massive things. They're about 4 or about 3 foot tall, or 3 foot by 3 foot by like 10 foot or 12 foot long, right? And you put them on the back of a flatbed and you kind of just pry them off and roll them off. And that's what we did. So you drop these so they're during the winter the horses have something to go to eat and the hay doesn't get moldy and so on because of the way that. And so I'm on the back of the trailer with the hay along with my best friend Jake and my friend Roger, whose pasture it is, driving in his truck and taking us around. So we drop the two first bales of hay off at the lower field. We go up to the upper field, or heading up towards the upper field. And in my infinite sober wisdom, I thought, hey, I bet you I could stand on this bale of hay and surf it. And I did. I stood on that bloody bale of hay, surfing on this thing as he was hitting every little pothole that he could in the field until he realized I was doing such. And he was probably doing like 35, 40 going through this field. And I'm sitting there bouncing around, blah, 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 blah. Until my friend Roger realized I was doing it. And I don't know if Roger was just trying to keep safe, he didn't want me to fall off, or he thought it would be funny, but he slammed on the brakes. And then I went from the trailer into the bed of the truck and smacked into the front or the back of the truck, like the shell of the truck or the cab of the truck, and landed in the trailer or the bed, laughing my ass off the whole way because it was funny. Um, I mean, of course, now I look back on it like I could have died, and that's going to be my mantra for most of this. I could have died so many times in the stuff I've done.
So many. It's funny, because I grew up doing a lot of the similar stuff. Brian and I didn't even know until recently, but I grew up checking bales of hay, helping take care of horses and goats and, the whole 9 yards. Next story I'm going to tell, though, is actually from for those that don't know, I served an LDS mission. Yeah, I'm sure you figured out that I, don't practice anymore, but I did. Um, in my last area, I made some wonderful friends, and there was this family out in northern Wisconsin that I became very close with. I'm actually still friends with them to this day. They're a great family. But they had a big old farm out there, and they did all sorts of crazy things. And so, one of those crazy things, actually, when you tell that story, because I've heard that before, when you tell that story, it reminds me they would they had this like big like rubber mat. It was probably like 30 feet long. They would hook to the back of a tractor, and they called it land surfing. And they would just like romp it on this tractor. It wasn't like it was that fast, but you just be trying to stand on this rubber mat and just kind of surfing along behind. So I did that, but the the funner thing that they I guess put me through in that gauntlet was they had these giant tractor tires, right? And a big old hill. See where this is going.
Oh yeah.
So me, nice, cute little Mormon missionary, uh, not allowed to do any extreme anything, has the great idea of, it's fine. They do it all the time. No one's been hurt that they've told me.
Right.
So I position myself in this tractor tire. I've got my feet propped up against one side. I'm holding for dear life. At the time, I hated more than anything to be upside down. Like, I've been on roller coasters that take you upside down, and I hated that. At this point, I actually really enjoy it. But at that time, I was so terrified. I was white knuckling this fucking tractor tire so bad. And they gave me that push. I don't know if you ever heard, well, I guess I was 21, so it's not like I was that mature, but uh screaming like a 6-year-old girl 300 yards down this hill. Ah!
I feel bad for your Mr. Mac outfit that you must have been wearing at the time.
It was actually, was it? It was Mr. Mac.
As of course it was. It was the missionary discount.
It was. It's funny. I
Not
didn't. I
sponsored.
didn't bonk my head a few times. Huh.
Oh man. But there's been so many great stories I have similar to that. Probably though, one of my favorite drunken stories. I've got two actually. Now I'm thinking about it. Uh, well, one I'll tell first, then the other. So I got really into paintball when I was in my early 20s with me and my buddies, and we ended up spending way too much money on paintball gear. And we were drinking and thought it'd be a great idea to go out to the field out in Magna near where my best friend lived, and would start playing some paintball in the middle of the night, drunk. That is very difficult to do. Sober, it's difficult to do. It's even more difficult drunk. And then when we realized we were not really having as much fun as we could, 'cause we couldn't either find each other or hit each other because we were too drunk, we thought it'd be a great idea to start, lighting up people's houses with the paintballs. Found out just recently, actually, one of the houses we lit up when we were drinking that night was my future parent-in-law's. Yep. I was telling that same story to my father-in-law, and he informed me that he's pretty sure that one of the houses we did was his house because he remembered around the same time that having to clean up paintball off of his house. Sorry, Finn. Um, I promise I'll never do it again. The second time, also in that same field, um, we were drinking, and it was right around 4th of July, and we had the grand idea of playing a brand new game we created called Roman Candle Baseball. So, the process of Roman candle baseball, if you've ever used a Roman candle, it's essentially a tube that fires out different shots, depending on the size you get, of fireballs, essentially. And we thought it'd be a good idea to not only aim them at our friends, please never do this, but also to try and hit them with a baseball bat and see if we can hit home runs with them. We
have
started
you
the field on fire
have I just have to ask, have you ever been hit by a Roman candle?
that same night, and it sucks.
Yeah, no, I got hit in the chest, point blank, like literally 2 feet away. Uh, One of my friends, I was in high school, shot me in the freaking chest with a Roman candle, lit my shirt on fire. I freaking panicked. I was like, ripped that off. He thought it was just the funniest thing ever, and I wanted to kill him.
Oh man. But going on with more drunk stories that are similar in this vein. I was drinking at another friend's house, and uh, we were all really drunk and messed up, and it got to a part where two of my friends were essentially trying to pee not only on each other but specifically in their ears. Because it started off with one fell asleep, like passed out, and the other one thought it'd be a good idea to pee in their ear. Let it be said that the guy woke up. And then later on that night, the first gentleman who did the peeing, I can't remember how it happened, but he got handcuffed, um, and then put onto the couch. And the second guy, who was the guy that got peed on, tried to take that opportunity to do a receipt, a payback for the first pee. It failed, and he ended up peeing all over my friend's couch instead. But that same night, this is a second story apartment complex. I thought it'd be a good idea to jump out of the balcony window into the snow that was there. Uh, I woke up later after doing so. I don't know if I hit and passed out, like I got knocked out, or if I hit and just passed out in the snow. But my friends came down a little later to come check on me because I was taking my nice nap in the snow pile. Yeah.
I There is a similar pee story amongst my circle of friends. It didn't have anything to do with me, but it's one that that I've heard, and it's funny. But we don't need to hit that same nail on the head too many times. I've done plenty of silly stuff. I actually built my own launch ramp when I was in high school, just out of particle board and 2x4s. And there was a little reservoir that was not far from me, and we would we actually we went to the DI. It's a thrift store out here in Utah, and we bought a life jacket and we cut it up and we put one piece in the frame of this bicycle, like in the frame, and another piece like in the handlebars. Basically, just made it so the bike would float. You see where this is going. And we
Mm.
would launch. We would just bike as fast as we could and launch into this lake. It was actually the raddest experience ever. Is it jackassy? No, who cares? But it was so fun. Yeah, sure, it could have been dangerous, but it was so fun. Nobody got hurt. I did that with a couple different groups of friends, including with my. Right after I got home from my mission, I went and did it again with my younger brother, and we both had a blast. This is another moment where we took things to a little bit of an extreme, chasing that adrenaline rush with just like I said, a handmade. Went to Home Depot, bought some particle board and 2x4, made a little launch ramp, and we were just jumping into this little lake. That was super fun. Not everything in has to end uncomfortably. Sometimes it's just a freaking great time.
Right. In that same vein, a dear friend of mine, Phil, he owns a blob. So if you guys don't know what the blob is, it's one of those giant air tubes. And I mean giant. They're like 25, 30 feet long, and then they get blown up to something probably in the frame of about 10 feet high. And you would sit on one end, have somebody jump off something, land on the other, and get flung. And it's designed to go in the water.
Yeah.
So we were at a place called Burston Ponds. It's near Nephi, Utah. And we were doing this, and we would get it all filled up and da da da, and fling these people or fling ourselves, and then eventually other people came over and was wanting to join us, so we joined up with them. Well, this one parent
Oh boy.
thought it'd be fun to fling his 10-year-old son, who was totally down for this, but the kid probably weighed 60 pounds,
Just
and
jumps the lake.
he not only did it with his dad, whose dad was probably pushing 300 pounds, but he also did it with his dad and my friend Phil. My friend Phil is a pro wrestler, 6'4", 320 pounds. They landed on that together from a height of about 10 feet. That kid easily went 60 feet in the air
Oh
and came
boy.
down. Oh my gosh, that splash he made. Like, I was playing lifeguard to make sure people wouldn't die. And like as soon as that kid hit, I went over there. And I before I even got there, the kid was back up. And the first thing he said was, "Ow, but that was awesome. Let's do it again."
He's a good sport anyway.
Right? Oh my gosh. And it's like a fun experience to do one of those if you've never done them. Um, but one last story I wanted to tell before we ended this, uh, actually involves Jackass in a way. With my same friend Phil. I think I told you this story before, but I'm gonna tell it again. So during or after Jackass, I think it was 2 came out, uh, myself, Phil, my wife, his wife, and our other friend Fanning were drinking. As you'll find, most of my stories involve drinking, and sometimes drinking with Phil. Um, we were drinking, and we decided that what we were going to do was to make a drinking game out of Jackass 2, as in we would take shots every time they would do something stupid. And somehow I still have a liver. Um, but by the time the movie was over and everything, we were just sloshed. Me, Phil, and Banning. And my wife and Phil's wife were both drinking at the time too, but they weren't joining us in that drinking game. So we walked out front of Phil's wife's grandmother's house where we were staying at. And in front of that house, there's a little brick wall that kind of blocks the entrance off. It's like 2 feet high, maybe 2.5 feet high. I leaned up against it. My wife is leaned up against me, and Phil decides to go chase Banning, who's a skinny little kid, to reproduce the peeing scene from Jackass 2. To pee on him. This is a whole different set of friends who peeing on each other, by the way, from the previous story. I just have a lot of friends who enjoy urinating upon each other.
Apparently. What is it with guys and pee and poop jokes?
Right. So Banning was quick and was able to run, but Phil still needed to go pee. So I don't know why he chose to do this, but Phil decided to come right next to me and pee over the little brick wall as I'm leaned up against it. And I mean, like right next to me, like our hips are practically touching. And in my inebriated brain, I thought this would be hilarious. I'm also in the wrestling world, if you don't know. I am infamous for squirrel tapping people because it's fucking funny. Uh, and while Phil's peeing and his wang's hanging out, I realized that his wang is millimeters above that brick wall. So I slowly push my wife forward, and as soon as the stream stops, before he's able to put it away, I hit that thing as hard as I could, and you watched it smack, bounce off the brick, come back up, and hit it again. That was the funniest squirrel tap I have ever done. Um, and actually just made me think of one other story that kind of ties into this. So after that squirrel tap, we actually told that story to another friend of ours, and that ended up creating a game in our world of wrestling friends that is known as uh nutball. So
Also
if
on
you
Jackass.
yes, it was actually we started doing it. I can't remember if we started doing it relevant to that, but that got brought up because of the story of us involving Jack. But Phil decided he was going to make the official nutball. Like we used to do different things, like we would like throw shoes or whatever when we were bored. So Phil got the official nutball. The core of the ball is a 1 pound bag of flour. Okay. And then he wrapped it and wrapped it and wrapped it with so much duct tape until it was ball like shape. And so you would kind of shot put that ball towards each other until the other person gave up. Uh, I generally, depending on my inebriatedness, would give up fairly quickly. Usually after the first lob, because that would be nice enough to be like, all right, I lobbed it at least. I'm gonna take the receipt and like, all right, I'm done. But one of the gentlemen, who goes by Spike, who is in my wrestling friend, him and Phil have had an ongoing uh rivalry for nutball. One night we were all drinking. I think it was one of Phil's birthdays, in fact. They went for about an hour in a
God.
session.
Oh,
Yeah, and
I've played nutball as well, not with you and your friends, but with
oh,
mine, because of Jackass. And oh man, I can't imagine going for an hour.
and dude, this ball, like it starts off like I said, the core is a 1 pound bag of flour, but there's so much tape and stuff. The thing's probably somewhere closer around 3 pounds, maybe
Yeah.
5 pounds of just stuff. And like you get a good lob on that, that's just, like I've had it where it's hit my thigh and I quit because I ended up getting a massive bruise in my thigh, right? And these guys went for an hour, and well, it turned out that we didn't know until that night that Spike's a masochist, and he enjoyed it. Like he was getting, you know,
Happy.
ready to go because of such. So much so his wife was very much happy the next morning, kind of thing. But he told me like he not only told me, but he sent me pictures. It was all bruised. And Phil is too stubborn and too prideful to have given up. So I think that's what caused him to go for the hour. I'm pretty sure Phil's the one that lost, but because his wife made him tap out, and that was the only reason that ended up stopping.
That's
Um,
funny.
oh, I got another one too. Okay, I know this is going long, but I've got so many of these. So I think I may have told this story before, but I'm telling it again. Uh, Psycho, who is my partner on the Bump Card Wrestling podcast, the other part to be hero. He was the gentleman who trained me in wrestling. I think I've told you this story before too. Um, we used to go up to another wrestler's house, Lucky, up in Ogden, which is in northern Utah, to go and drink and stuff. And Lucky is a very, let's say, pretty man, flamboyant, if you would. He's the only man I've ever known that not only has but enjoys glitter.
Ugh,
Like
I
he
don't
has
like him already.
tubes of glitter, and he's like an MMA fighter as well, right? So like he's a guy that will back up you making fun of him for it.
I'll still make fun
And
of him for it.
we were all
I ain't
drinking,
scared.
and Nick is a lightweight when it comes to drinking. Like he would used to take up a 6 pack of like Smirnoff Ice, maybe have 3 of them, and he'd pass out. And we gone up there, and me and Lucky and a bunch of us all were drinking like actual mixed drinks of some variety. And Nick was having a Smirnoff and had been complaining all day because um the weekend or the weekend before we had at a wrestling show, and some of Lucky's glitter that he'd used in the ring got onto Nick, and he was complaining about it because Nick's also a germaphobe. And so when Nick passed out, and he passed out laying on his side on the couch, we thought it'd be funny to get some glitter. We ended up using a whole tub of glitter and dumping it all over Nick. And if you've ever put oil on water or oil on cellophane and it has that like weird rainbowy effect, that's what half of his face looked like. Okay. So Nick's passed out. And then while he's passed out, we're went on to a different conversation. We never woke him up. We just wanted to let him sit as he was. After he woke up, we didn't say a word. We were waiting to see if he'd react. He never reacted. And so we started talking about a bunch of different things, including a certain um, sexual style known as Bugaki. I I don't exactly want to go into here of what Bugaki is. Um,
No,
yeah, so we're not
if
going
you
to
know, you
say
know.
yeah, but we were talking about it, and we made a joke that Lucky, because of all of his glitter and everything, would let out glitter instead of what men generally let out. And I made a joke, or after we did my dad joke to Nick, and I'm like, "Well, Nick, how would you feel about being cocky by Lucky?" After talking about that, and without missing a beat, because he was drunk, he's like, "I would be honored," and that just we all lost it. It was done. We were all done. We couldn't hold it back anymore, and it was at exactly that moment that Nick realized he was covered in glitter and everything else, and it was so funny. He complained for so long too because if you've ever used glitter or have family members that ever use glitter, you realize that that stuff stays around forever. He complained because he could not get that glitter off, like all the way off. He was still finding glitter months later on himself or in his car or anything like that in his room, all over the place. It was so funny. But wait,
There's
there's
more.
more. So that same night I had mentioned about Phil's birthday party. Um, Nick was also there, and we had told his now girlfriend about that same story, and Nick was copying a little bit of an attitude, and he'd also been playing nutball. He was in that tournament and drinking, and I thought to kind of bring down his ego and everything else, as well as it'd be hilarious. I talked one of Phil's family members, his sister in law, who I also knew used a lot of glitter, to acquire glitter for me. And so while he was playing that ball, in fact, every time that that ball would start to come in, I was sitting behind him, and I would slightly dump some more glitter on the top of his head. And if you guys have ever seen Psycho, you would realize that he and I share a haircut type. And by the time he recognized that there was glitter, I'd already gone through the whole tub of it. He had a halo of glitter on top of his head. It was hilarious. But wait, there's more. We went to, or he then went to go and get it washed out. Same sister-in-law went through a system with that by putting his head in the shower and getting it cleaned out. And for wrestling people, you would understand that a chop, a hit across the chest, is a legit thing. There's no way of faking it, pulling it, whatever. You hit that someone across the chest, you're literally smacking them across the chest, and that sucks. But what sucks worse is a chop across the back. So yeah, while Nick was doing that, a person who also lived in that house, who he was having problems with, thought it would be hilarious, and it was, to chop him on the back as his head was under the water trying to get the glitter out. We were messing with Nick so much. Nick slightly became our Stevo that night, for all the stuff that happened. So, oh man, there's so many good stories. I could go on talking for hours
I'm
about
sure
all the
we
stupid
both
stuff
could.
I've done.
That being said, though, out of the stories that you guys have heard, just curious, which one's your favorite? And we also want to hear some of your silly stories, your human experiences, your mishaps on your way to herohood. We would like to know. And if we get enough responses, we might do a second episode that is entirely fan responses of
Yep,
stories. We would
for
love
sure.
to be able to do that. So please hit us up on social media in the comments. Social media, facebook.com/slash Media, Instagram.com/slash Media.
On Twitter at BeHeroMedia, as well as everything that is BeHeroMedia at BeHeroMedia.com. Also, while you're there, if you decide that you want to start your own podcast, our audio engineer who does all of these great episodes for us, Justin, is actually allowing him or is setting up to do services himself outside of Be Hero. If you go to BeHero.com/Justin, you'll see his price list and everything else. He will get you set up and squared away about doing great podcasts like this for you. He does a great job for us. He'll do great for you.
Exactly.
As well as, don't forget right here on YouTube to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that you know when we're coming on for another great episode of either Be Hero Media or any other thing we do on this channel.
Exactly. Thanks as always for watching, guys. We really appreciate you. And do you have anything else, Brian?
No. Only thing I would say is, though we've done a lot of stupid stuff in our lives, a lot of it, for me at least, involved drinking. Try to drink responsibly. We've done a lot of dumb, as we mentioned on this episode, of that. Please know that though we did a lot of dumb, we were lucky to not hurt anybody from it. From our drive window over, from the accidental fires I said, things like this. There's tons of dumb that I've done in my life, and I've been very lucky to not hurt anybody with it. Please don't even try and risk doing something similar. It is not worth someone's life.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
But with that being said, I guess that's it for us tonight, huh?
I think so.
All right. Well, guys, as always, go out there and
And be a
be a
hero.
hero. Have a good night, guys.